realized that we had very few people that were just plain audience members in the room now, and I think we're down to 3. I think it's everybody in the room is performing, or friends of performers, which is totally fine, especially because I'm about to do what I'm about to do. Yeah, this is home, and I don't know if many of you know how I got started here. In 2002, I'd just gotten back to this state. I'd been traveling the country, living in other states for many, many years. And I got back to Minnesota, and I was running a nonprofit art gallery. And we started an open mic there because I was like, there's no freaking open mics in this town anywhere. You can't find any. It's stupid. So we started one of our own. And then I picked up the city pages one day, and there's this big, huge 2-page spread about this thing called the National Poetry Slam. I was like, what the fuck is that? I looked at the list of things going on there, and all these open mics. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I'm going to go to every one of those. So I went to the very first one, and it was the rookie open mic, and I was hooked, because I realized at that moment, these are the rookies, and I don't know what poetry is. And I spent the entire week doing everything I possibly could with teams from all around the country, and hanging out and learning poetry. And then it was a week-long event, and a week after the beginning was the very first slam at Kieran's Irish Pub, which was where the Minneapolis Poetry Slam was. And I performed there my first time, and a week later, I'd heard about this, and a week later I performed here for my very first time. So tonight I'm going to do the very first slam poem I ever wrote, and the first piece I ever performed here. Yeah, Shane's in pain right now, because he knows what's coming.
Oh no, sorry, I'm just talking about other things, because I know what you're saying is not interesting.
Okay. It's funny because it's true. All right, and I was just looking this over because I haven't performed this in probably 5 years or something like that, and I was looking it over and realized how really, oh my God, I would never write this today, but it's kind of have that need to get it out. So here you go. This is I Was Confused. One day in the first grade, in a suburban school that was all white except for me and another 3. I wasn't paying much attention, but the teacher must have been discussing race because she said, "Matthew, would you please stand up and tell the class what color you are?" And I was confused. I was only in the first grade. No one ever told me about race or creed or ethnicity, so I stood from my seat and I stared at my arm, and I wasn't sure of the question, so I wasn't sure of the answer, so I said the only thing that made sense to me, I said, "Green?" Side note, I'm colorblind. I don't see colors as others do. They are vague, obscure, and at best confused. I can't see a red ball in the green grass, and rainbows to me are just stains in the sky, but I must have been the only one. I didn't know the answer wasn't right, but the other kids laughed and laughed. You see, they all knew that they were white. So when the students' finger-pointed laughter subsided and the teacher shook her chuckle from her smile, she corrected my mistake. "No, Matthew, you're black." I was confused. I sat back down at my desk and I stared at my arm and I wondered, how can this be black? When the blackboard and I have nothing in common, and when my black crayon does not blend into my skin as though I were drawing myself, how can this be black? That evening, I brought this question to my mother, a woman with eyes as blue as diamonds and skin as pale as a Doris Day song. "Mom, what color am I?" "Well, I'm German and English and French." German? English, French, those didn't sound like any colors I'd ever heard of, and when you can't see colors, you do tend to listen. I posed this query to my father next, a man with skin as dark as the night sky, suffering from a bout of depression. "Dad, what color am I?" "Well, your grandmother is half Ojibwa, and the rest, well, we can only assume we are African because, you see, slaves only hung from family trees." African? Ojibwa? I'd never heard of those colors either. My question wasn't answered that day, that year, that school. Now you may think that time would have brought closure to this dilemma. Alas, time only made me blind and deaf and confused. Blind, so I did not see the things I should have seen. Deaf, so I did not hear the things I should have heard. Confused, so I did not understand the things I should have understood. My 5th grade teacher who taught a class that was all white, except for me and another 3, took great pleasure describing in vivid detail the atrocities perpetrated against slaves in transport. Black men and women packed for months in large wooden ships, arms and legs shackled in irons, lying face down on wooden slabs, one stacked on top of the other, tight half the space of a coffin and none of the piece, and on. And on. These were the words of a racist teacher to a classroom full of elementary Play-Doh minds, but they didn't know it wasn't right. You see, they all knew that they were white, but I was blind and I was deaf and I was confused, but like a child that had been molested, I somehow knew it was wrong, but I didn't tell anybody about it. And I never stood up and said, no, this is not right. It's not black man or white man, but human. And you may think that I'm wrong, but I'm sure that I'm right because I know that I'm half white. So check your eyes, make sure you can see. Check your ears, make sure you can hear. Check your mind to make sure that you understand. And if you do, try to explain it to me because you see, I'm still confused.